Good day. It is Tuesday and I'm hanging out for Peloton and Preach. Super excited about it. Still strapping in my boots. Sometimes I feel like I'm getting on a horse when I get on this thing. Which is a-okay. I love horseback riding. I rode a horse one time. I was at a gymnastics camp when I was younger, and everybody's horses were going and trotting, and my horse decided to stop and sit down, which I didn't know that was a thing, and so it kind of freaked me out. But I was gracefully patient while it took its little rest and got to get going again. But when you get on the Peloton, it ain't time to rest, is it, Kelly? It's time to go. What's up, Ryan Austin? How are you, brother? Hopefully you made it back safely yesterday.
For you, I am Allie Love. Welcome. This is a 20-minute HIIT ride. HIIT stands for high intensity.
I'm getting on the Peloton, y'all. High intensity. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? I'm going to do a HIIT ride while we're on today. HIIT is one of my favorite things. High intensity training. Tabata is another one of my faves. If someone said, what's your favorite exercise or workout, I would say Tabata training, which is 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off for 4-minute stints. And the traditional concept is 16 minutes. And I was a personal trainer and nutrition coach in my early 20s. And when I first got into that, and really my whole life, I always thought you had to work out for an hour. I always thought, like, if you're not working out for an hour, what are you actually doing, right? And so it's amazing to see how my mind has shifted, how I've been able to serve people, how I've been able to serve myself in the 10-minute, 16-minute, 20-minute, 30-minute windows. And then when I got involved at Burn Boot Camp about 4 years ago, it really was that unlock because I was doing 30-minute sessions and I just absolutely loved it. But there's nothing better than a good 16-minute Tabata sweat sesh. Y'all should see this girl's hair today. She has like 40 bobby pins right here. Maybe I'll try it tomorrow. This is bedhead, right out of bed. And I am so excited to talk to you about what God was just sharing on my heart this morning. It's going to actually be a bit of a difficult navigation of information because I don't often share this side of myself, I guess I should say, because it feels really intimate and it feels really a space that I protect a lot. And I think we all do, but the conversation was really provoked in my spirit this morning. And if I didn't do what I told you I was going to do and share my quiet time, am I actually doing and staying in integrity and character and alignment with what God is prompting me to share? And so yesterday, if you didn't have the opportunity to check out my incredible interview with two different people, honestly, Tiffany Elisa, who she's a vessel of love on all sense of the word, all sense of the invitation that she provides, just such an incredible human. And then I got the pleasure of spending time with Tim's story. Tim has, served all of Hollywood. He has been a one-on-one coach to Oprah, to Robert Downey Jr. When he was in his dark season, the list goes on, right? Lots and lots of famous people. And when you sit with him, as I've had the gift of doing many times, but this was the first time face-to-face because we are always on Clubhouse, and I had a segment like right before his. So there would be this overlapping time of conversation that was just always such a gift. He is someone who is just such a lover of people. He's so affirming. I was learning and picking up as he was talking how unself-centered he is, which is obviously not something he learned from Hollywood, right? He has this sense of giving and really receiving, but really only receiving like the good, which then helps deposit and flourish his love that much more. And so all of those conversations combined with what I opened in my 2 books this morning really just spoke to my heart to share with you all a possibility. a journey of understanding that above all things, it's love, right? And we know this. It says that love is the greatest. There is hope and there is faith, but the greatest of these is love, right? And I think I get it right a lot, but I think I get it wrong too. And the part that I said was going to be hard for me to share about was the love of those who are closest to us. I feel like I'm really good at loving people through influence. I feel like I'm really good at loving my coaching clients. I feel like I'm really good at loving my kids, even though I fall short as a mom, my spouse, though I fall short as a wife. But the people that I want to talk about today are your extension of family. The family that could be your parents, could be your siblings, could be those people in that inner circle. And the reason that I want to speak to it isn't because I figured it all out, but because that's where the moment of conviction was today. And for those who are really close to me, you know that I'm going through some interesting times with my dad. He just moved to Richmond yesterday, which is the first time in my whole life that he hasn't been a stone's throw away in the same neighborhood or down the road from me, other than when he was on a bit of a hiatus in my sister's farm in Brookneal earlier this year. And I've had some friction over the situation, over divorce, had some friction over their role individually, his role individually in it, and my own role in that, right? And understanding that I can't take on the burdens or the problems of someone else and was never mine to fix. But it doesn't mean that as a child going through that, even an adult child, that you don't process those emotions, that you don't think, could I have done something different? Could I have helped? Could I have been a support? And I've been a fixer my whole life. I've been a mediator my whole life. I'm a middle child, and so I always felt like my role was to be the one to bring the two together, the older sibling and the younger sibling, like be the middle ground, be the common ground. I've also been really good at that for other people. Like, come to me, I'll listen, I'll help navigate, I'll help support. I've even done that for clients in regards to marriage, though counseling is not my forte, but I feel like when you have a pastor's heart, when you have a desire to love people and to help people heal and be whole, it's a natural offshoot of love and mediation. And so I'm sharing this with you because of a couple things. That moment of conviction of, are you loving everyone else really, really well? And you're not loving those closest to you as well as you could. In a Jesus-like love, which is in spite of self, which is in spite of wounds, which is in spite of actions, which is in spite of he said, she said, which is in spite of history, which even is in spite of their future. If love covers a multitude of sins, if love heals all, if love is not even me, Tamra, the flesh, Tamra, the body, but God, the spirit, and he's given me a mustard seed of faith, and he's given an example to me over and over again by Jesus himself and also by his spirit. I am love. And therefore, if I am love, I have to show up in that identity, and I have to serve outside of ego better. Ryan, what are you saying? We have to make sure we fill our cup, otherwise we can't pour into others. Yeah. Well, and what's interesting about that, Ryan, is this is a common phraseology, right? This is something people naturally say. Even the song like, fill me up, let your love run over, right? But Anthony Hart, who you know, Ryan, he changed that phraseology for me, because in a cup, if something is pouring into, even if there's an overflow, does the full filtration of that cup actually happen, or is the bottom water stagnant? Are you growing mold in the part of the water that is being left for you? Is there enough? And honestly, if there's an overflow, because of how we're taught to love others hard, love others first, we forget to love ourselves. We put ourselves last. And so the shift in that is then becoming a conduit of love, right? Which is, I believe, our natural ability and our whole purpose for being here on earth as it is in heaven, is this understanding, if I'm a conduit, not a cup, not something that at any point should there be this component of greed, this component of selfishness, though I do value self-love and identity and those quiet times with the Lord, and I've got to know, I have to be certain that I am loved. And I've got somebody who jumped on, Marcus Ellis, who is an incredible man of love. Like, you're around him, you know you're loved. And I question, when there are people like that, because I'm pretty good at it myself, how much do they love themselves? And how much do they love the people who are closest to them? Are they doing those other people service, justice? Do they understand that love to the same extent that I understand that love? Because I hear from him every day, I love you, right? And I need that love. I need that affirmation. But how much more do we need it from the people who are in our close proximity? The ones that have been so close that they could wound you. So close that you might have scars from them. So close that you might think the only reason that you are breathing today is in spite of them. Well, I am reading these books, as you know, and I think it's so wild to see how chapter by chapter is literally completely enmeshing and paralleling. In today's conversation, obviously, was about love. The first one, in Choose to Win by Tom Ziglar, the chapter was about family, which is obviously what prompted this conversation, but it was actually talking about the safe harbor of your home and how you develop your children in association to legacy, which Michelle is in the clubhouse room right now, and legacy is a massive part of her story, which I honor so much. But what if our only legacy was love? What if that's all we got? Would it be sealed on your name? Would it be sealed on your identity? Would it be sealed on your business? Would it be sealed in your home? Would it be sealed from your marriage? Would it be sealed as a parent? Would that be how they remember you? That she loved me well? Because I think people like Marcus, other Marcus Black, Marcus Ellis, it must be a Marcus thing, Alexander Gonzalez, for instance, whose banner is love. Do you love yourself? Do you love those close to you? You've got to know. This is so critical to explore. Yeah, Marcus, I'm so excited about 7 a.m. with you guys and hearing this. It's so critical. So, family, identity and legacy associated to family. It was really cool as an application for you. I explore this idea of taking your last name as an acronym and creating a family legacy together with your children, even if they're young, helping them not only spelling, but associating each letter of your last name to your family legacy. The example that was given in the book, I loved it so much, it was so sweet, was done by a 5, a 7, a 10, and a 12-year-old and the parent. So this can be early age. Their last name is Hallis, hardworking, adding value, loving the Lord, living joyfully, applying knowledge, and serving others. And I was like, this is really fun. I want to do this with my kids. I want to practice this so that they know how to show up to life as an Andress, how to show up. And we don't have a L in our last name, so we're going to have to come up with something good because love has to be a foundation of this explanation. I love this so much with the representation of how do you show up in love towards your spouse and even towards your kids, but specifically this is for the spouse. And this was from the guy's perspective. Once I realized that my role as the husband was to create the environment that would allow my wife to become all that God created her to be, everything in our marriage changed. Let's flip it. Once I realized that my role as a wife was to create an environment that would allow my husband to become all that God created him to be, everything in our marriage changed. Do you hear anything about self in that? No. You hear about surrender. You hear about foundation. You hear about selflessness towards seeing that other person grow, shift, change, emerge. They probably feel really loved. And I feel that way every day for my spouse. Gary lays down his life daily for me. And I hope that he feels the same on my behalf. But it's also this understanding of seasons, and there are seasons where love even might feel stagnant. And when I'm talking about my family that was my family unit, the Cornwell legacy, there is some stagnancy in that space. I've dealt with wounds that I could not possibly begin to share here. I've dealt with hurt. I've dealt with backstabbing. I've dealt with fear. I've dealt with failure. I've dealt with lies. I've dealt with trauma. But I've also dealt with a lot of love, right? My family was intact. My family was, for the most part, present. And even in presence, you can be completely outside of the operation of love. Being present doesn't mean you love someone. You can be in a marriage and be fully present and yet not fully loving. And yesterday when I was having those conversations with both Tiffany and Tim, man, did their love emanate through the screen? Did I feel in their presence love that superseded everything else? And that's been the mission of their lives, to love people, even when they didn't understand, even when the recipient of love rejected. I want to be better at that. I want to love even when the recipient isn't seemingly deserving. But guess what? If I flip the script, if I see with the eyes of Jesus, if I put on the lens of God, everyone is deserving of love. Everyone already has within them a measure of love. And isn't it our job to see that grow? To see them be the greatest version of themselves, to see them be all that God intended for them to be? But yet we don't do that because we're worrying about filling our cup, right? They don't love me well, so I'm going to go to somebody else who will fill my cup and love me well and affirm me and share all the love languages that you could possibly think of and more. And because I feel rejected in those relationships, I do that all the time. I flee from the showing up in love because I don't feel loved, because I don't feel seen, because I don't feel understood. What if Jesus did that? Y'all, I'm so good at talking about biblical principles to business. And I've unlocked some pretty miraculous experiences and knowledge and wisdom in my marriage and in motherhood. But sometimes I fail at being a sister and a daughter. And I don't want to do that. And yet I know, simultaneous to building the family legacy of the Andresses, I don't want to let go of the opportunity of the family legacy of the Cornwells that still exist, that still need the Tamra Andress that has now emerged to come back, not to heal, not to save, but to show up and showcase the love that I've now come into connection with. The love that I won't even be able to give in my lesser version of self, but in my saved version, in the new body, in the new mind, in the consistent renewing of that mind, in the spirit that dwells within me. I can let him, his power, his strength, his might, his love supersede those conversations, supersede those expectations, supersede that rejection. And so if you take the cup analogy and you flip it just like I have the funnel for business, flipped it. Gosh, this is good. Because we talk about this, and this is going to be a building to what Anthony taught me. Instead of just being a funnel where the flow of heaven is constantly through you, meaning that everyone who comes in contact with you gets a piece of Jesus, simultaneous, what happens when oil floods through a funnel? What happens? You're being coated, consistently coated. And there doesn't have to be this, what's in it for me? Because your cup never runs dry. Your conduit never feels vacant. And so to layer that on top, to bring fresh revelation to that through my own lens, is this concept of an hourglass. It's what I've been teaching in business for the last few months when I had this revelation with a client, as we were talking about customer acquisition, community service, and actually showing up and cultivating a family in your business. Ryan, you are given such a beautiful example of this through Brian Hess. It's obvious that he puts his family principles into his development of the top contractor school, into his development of friendships and relationships. And I'm so grateful to be on the receiving end of that love. But can we do it better? And so it's this idea of an hourglass, not even a funnel, because a funnel has a flow, an exit point, right? But I really believe that as you funnel and flow love to other people, there will be a critical season, whether it's in your health, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's in your job situation, whether it's in the state of the world, whatever it be, whatever that situation is for you, where that funnel, that hourglass flips upside down, and all the love that you've given out, all the love that you've cultivated, it's going to come flowing right back to you. Maybe from the people you expect at least. Maybe from the people that you thought just that little bit didn't go very far. But think about the oil that they anointed Jesus with at the dinner party. She said, all I have left is this. Do you have this much love to give today? In the truth and the belief and the knowing that you are a conduit of God's love, that He is an everlasting loving Father, and He's not going to give up on you. He's not going to hold His love from you like we so often do because of the hurt and the pain in the past. The prayer is about forgiveness. The prayer is about repentance. The prayer is about revelation today. The revelation that love is always growing. Love is always emerging if you're connected to the Father, because He is love. No other explanation. And what I thought was really cool in the second book that I'm reading, first was about family legacy. The next was about discernment and the force of love. Discernment can be distracted when it comes to love, when it comes to showing up well, because of what we're fueling our minds with. Are you fueling your mind with the memory of the past? When you were washed white, when you were forgiven, did you also forgive? Or are you carrying that as a burden to your every single day? I know how to love. I know how to love. I know what it feels like to be loved. And I definitely know that when I walk into certain situations, because of discernment, I immediately put on this shield of protection of this little girl who says, I don't want to go through that trauma again. I don't want to feel that sense of rejection. I don't want to be less than me. And so I'll carry this robe through entire situations, not just for an hour at dinner, but for weeks. And I carry that robe, and I forget when I leave the situation, when I leave the environment, when I leave the vacation, when I leave the dinner, that I have to undress myself from that blanket of rejection and fear. And I've got to stand in love. And so instead of putting that coat back in my coat closet today, I want to burn it. I want you to burn it. I want you to stop walking in with timidity to relationships that have scarred you in the past. I am all for boundaries. I am all for protection of self, but guess who's protecting you way more than that spirit of fear or that spirit of rejection? God. He gives you a breastplate of love and faith. He gives you a helmet of protection and salvation. He doesn't need you to put on any more clothes if you're getting dressed in the Spirit every single day. What he needs you to do is be a conduit of love instead of a cup. He needs you to give it out. Because guess what? Those people need you as an example. They need you pointing to Jesus, because they aren't going to understand, why is she loving me still? I've hurt her so much. Maybe you've been the one hurting them because of your spirit of timidity, because of your sense of rejection. Maybe they've tried to forgive you. Maybe they've tried to love you, and you've still been halting because of the past. I don't know about you, but I don't want to ever sin and show up in repentance to God and him say, I don't know if I trust you quite yet. I don't know if I'm ready to give you the outpour of love that you deserve freely. No, he would never do that. A ring and a robe, remember? The prodigal son. Maybe your family members are currently prodigal. Maybe you have adult children or adult parents and they're prodigal. Can you show up in the safe harbor and the protection of God the Father instead of in that child faith of lack, or that child understanding, that faith of lack, of I need a father, when you've already been throned, you've already been held, you've already been carried, you've already been crowned as a daughter or a son of the King. And therefore you don't need the affirmation of the people connected to you, but I do believe God placed you in their family with purpose, on purpose, to love them in spite of how much they love themselves or how much they did or didn't love you in the past. Y'all, I'm preaching to myself today, okay? I don't know who's here with me. I see it. Yes, a conduit of love. Yes, forgiveness is critical. Without forgiveness, you cannot access love. How do you think Jesus did it? But the coolest thing is, Jesus actually loved you first. He loved you before. That's why he sent his son. Yes, he might have known the story. He knew what your pages would look like. He knew what your testimony would unfold of, but it didn't matter to him. He showed up anyway. He loved you first. Forgiveness came out of a sense of surrender. And I believe forgiveness in those situations, in those relationships is going to come too. But I believe the first thing is that you have to forgive yourself. You have to forgive yourself for the lack. You have to forgive yourself for the consistent trying and never getting a response. You have to forgive yourself even in spite of the rejection, even in spite of the scars. And you have to use those scars as a testimony to love, just as Jesus did. He said, even though the world rejected me, even though I feared getting on the cross to a component of God, if it's possible, will you pass this cup from me, he said. He was in flesh in that moment. He knew what he had to do, but there was hope that maybe he didn't have to endure the pain. Every time I'm in a situation or relationship, and I know that there is an opportunity to be hurt, and I go in, I've prayed in the Spirit before I've entered into the situation in hopes that I can be all that God made me to be in that situation and show up in love. I don't always get it right. I flee from it from time to time. I want to do better. I want you to do better. I want us to be a representation, like Tim was saying yesterday. I said, Tim, how do you go into these situations knowing that these people might not know Jesus? They might be so fixated on the happiness of the world. They might be fixated on a love that is false. Gosh, we could talk about so much in that conversation. A love of sexuality or porn or addictions of lust or anything in that regard. And he said, it's really simple actually. I have an experience of great exchange with them. And I understand the biblical reference to the great exchange. But he said, so often the church, the religious, and I've been guilty of doing this, which is why I'm sharing it, what they're trying to do is pry scissors out of a little kid's hands. Do you know what that's like? They found the one thing they're not supposed to have that's dangerous to them. And so you're saying, let me have that. Give that back. What do they naturally do? They covet it. They keep it. You're going to take the only thing that I know to be true. And I felt like the sexuality piece, the lust piece, the knowing piece, the affirmation piece was what kept me grounded or affirmed or somehow mistakenly loved. And it's just simply not true. So he goes through this great exchange without stealing the scissors from the kid's hands. And he says, but what if I can exchange their attention? I can divert their attention from the thing that seemingly has all of that and put it on the one who loves them greater, who becomes the filler of love, that it never runs dry, no matter proximity, no matter situation, no matter access. If I can divert their attention and I can introduce them to something greater, they will put it down at the altar freely, happily, excitingly. And it's that easy. And guess how he did it? He shows up in love. He shows up already forgiving them because he has no skin in the game. And I understand that can be hard for when you have skin in the game, when the name is attached to the legacy that is connected to you. But guess what? I believe if love covers all sin, then you're already free, my friend. You're already free. I had this revelation, and I was on a podcast this past week about the fruits of the Spirit. And in greater understanding, it's actually only the fruit of the Spirit. The one fruit, though I thought it was many, is love. The following words, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, are filler words, not filler words like purposeless, filler words like adding to, addition of, supplement to love. If you have the fruit of the Spirit, the one fruit, love, all of these others will be added to you in measure, because you will be able to understand that there is nothing greater than the great I am, who is love above all things. Love is a lifestyle. Love is a lifestyle. I want you to own that today. I want you to realize that love can be your legacy. I want you to say yes to forgiveness of self, of others, of anybody else. But ultimately to recognize that it's not a cup. The great exchange for you today, my friend, because you know the Lord, because you love the Lord, because he first loved you, is that you shift your cup to an hourglass, to a funnel, to an experience that every time you love, it's not about what love will come back, but that you're freely giving it, knowing that you are full and well and satisfied because you are planted, because you are seated, because you are rooted next to the loving Father in a flowing stream that never ends. Guys, today's been awesome. I hope it met your spirit. I hope it convicted you just a little bit as I was convicted this morning. I hope you reach out to those people that you maybe have missed target on love, just to remind them that they are loved by you. Even if it's hard for you to come up with the words. Maybe it's just, hey, I was thinking about you. I love you. You guys jump on at 7 a.m. to Clubhouse, Kingdom Clubhouse. If you scroll up, you'll see Marcus and Cher are going to be on there. No doubt they'll be talking about love too, because that's what God does. He connects us. He connects his children, his kingdom, with intent to spread the good news every single day. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye. Hey, baby girl. How are you?